one hand as a thumb post towards the inside of the knee here. With the opposite hand, at almost the same time I establish that thumb post, I'm circling to inside position where I get palm to the hip, 4 fingers facing towards the outside. And then when I'm here, my goal is to turn his knee to the mat. His hip will turn over as a byproduct of that movement, but I want to make sure that I'm not leaving my right arm at extension. I'm starting to shorten the length of my arm. We're not going to specifically talk about this movement this week, but if my elbow and tricep can get here to inside position, I can elevate and I can scoop. So that can be another means of getting to the over-under pass. But again, for right now, I push, I begin this motion to shuffle away. I try to start to bring my head forward, and this is gonna help me to get this inside position for my underhook on the far side. But if he's tracking me really, really well with his right leg here, and he's staying, for example, towards the inside of my knee, I can always choose to just drop down, okay? When I drop down though, what I would like to see from you guys right now is lower the level of your shoulder here below his knee. That's gonna make the next step here with the right arm a little bit easier. But with my head position here, if he can get under my chin, he can start to force me up. So you guys are gonna have to learn how when he goes to frame the shoulder, to pinch with your chin, your jaw here, and then start to push his head out of the way. But I do have to be conscious if he cuts a perpendicular angle after the fact, there's ways he can choke me. So I'm just trying to kill this frame and then come down with my knee above his knee. Okay, for right now, I don't really need you to do much above that. But what we do want to avoid is this position, how we would typically run back from here. And I said if we were going to run to finish the torreando last week, we didn't have to worry about that movement too much because we turn his hips over. Now we're not turning his hips over a second time to that opposite direction. So when I get here, I'm not playing with my elbow flared. I'm playing with my elbow tight towards the inside of my hip. And then to make the advancement above his knee, I'm catching with my quad. Okay, so I want to make sure that I don't stop here below. I come here above. And then for right now, to enter into the position, we're gonna look to adjust this right arm deep where my shoulder's coming towards the hamstring. I'm getting 4 fingers to the front side of the hip here, and then I'm driving. As I'm driving, consciously I'm taking my head in towards that pocket, and I'm trying to punch my left arm as tight as I can under the hip. So I'd like to get to a point where I'm flush with his torso here in terms of my elbow to the front of the hip, the ribs, and then my fist is coming behind his hamstring and his glute, and I'm thumb up. So I'm taking the plane of my arm high across the bottom side of his leg here. Okay, last detail, when you guys get to this position, I want to see you come to the balls of your feet, elevate your hips, and make sure that you're clamping your 2 thighs together. That's going to give you significant pressure in towards your right shoulder, and we're looking to align our left shoulder with the bottom hip. So both of his hips are controlled via my shoulders, here like so. Okay, that's the angle you want to be on. If I find that I'm drifting, especially for some of you bigger guys, where my shoulder's up by his sternum here, it's putting me too far past his midline. If he wants to do something like a knee lever, he's going to be able to take me past that midline, and he's going to be able to sweep me very quickly as I come down shoulder pressure. Does that make sense now? Okay, we focus a lot on the pass. I think everybody has a basic understanding of how to do that. Granted, we don't have the strong grips of the belt, the skirt of the gi. So we have to make sure that when we bring our underhook here, you guys are getting 4 fingers deep to the front side of the hip. Another thing I need you guys to realize, the knee bar is only a really viable option if we first threaten the pass. So just by getting to an over-under position, you're putting your partner in a compromising spot. They're very worried about you coming over the top of the knee on that bottom side and starting to advance, okay? So the threat of that is what creates the opportunity to go for the knee bar. We have 2 options with the knee bar. We have the Dogbar, and then we have more of like a lateral knee bar. With the first option, I'm looking to get his hips flat, and I'm looking to take his leg into extension fairly straight. So for example, he's most likely to be in this position. If the foot starts to rotate externally, then we're gonna have a second option that we talk about, okay? I'm gonna break them down. I'm gonna have you just drill one at a time, starting with option number 1. Other thing I need you guys to understand is there's a lot of variability in body types. Somebody's longer, shorter. Their body in relation to the leg, it's harder to get the alignment, okay? So for the first one, I need to create some elevation by back heeling and making sure that I align my hip or my pelvis over the top front side of the knee, so here, higher rather than lower. If I'm right at the knee or I'm lower than the knee, there's a pretty good chance that the first option is not gonna work for me, okay? So when you guys come out, I'm gonna have you guys go ahead and get into the position. So you guys can elect to come to a thumb post. You can circle to inside position and you can begin to shuffle flank. When you're here, again, remember that the partner's tracking me with this leg towards the inside of my knee. This is gonna force me to come down with a bend in my right arm. And when I'm here, I wanna try to keep my left elbow tight and I wanna begin to rock his hips. It's really this motion to rock, driving with my forearm, my shoulder, my low head position, that's gonna give me the ability to, one, clear my knee over the top, and then two, that takes some of his weight towards this left hip of his and allows me to slide my arm underneath where I can take my fist past the point of the hamstring towards the glute. I can leave my elbow aligned here to the front side of the hip. This is also gonna let me rotate my shoulder down and get my underhook connection really, really deep, okay? So from this position, this is how I'm driving his hips square to the mat. This is how I'm coming to the balls of my feet. So generally, when I get to this position here, my knees are elevated. What ends up happening is my partner frames hard, pushing my head and or shoulders down, okay? But I maintain the underhook. When I start to get pushed down, it can be difficult to walk. This is where I start to make the adjustment. So as I start to go, instead of pointing my two knees in my direction, what I'm gonna work to do instead is elevate my heel. And then as my knees go to the mat, I'm looking to close towards a figure four. It's never gonna be a true figure four where I get behind the hinge of my knee. It's generally gonna come towards the base of my calf. But when I'm in this position here, like I said, I lift, I rotate towards the secondary leg, and then I begin to drop my knees. As my knees go wide and flare, my hip comes down, that little bit of hip pressure there. Once my knee and or calf, really the backside of my leg comes closer towards the Achilles, if my hip is in good position, I start to apply the pressure for the dog bar. So here again, when you guys are working, let's go ahead and start from this standing position, like this transitionary scenario, thumb post, circle. Begin to come down, shortening the length of your right arm, flanking. If I see that his foot is to the inside of my knee, this is one reason why I might elect to come down. But as I come down, understand this motion right here to rock is imperative, okay? Knee advances, arms advance into position. This is opening the hips. If I start to come up and I immediately get pushed down where his leg comes straight, I'm gonna look to take my left knee before my right knee, generally speaking. My right foot is gonna back heel. This lifts the leg up. It allows me to rotate towards the secondary leg, and then I go wide knees. As I open my base with my elbows, my hips are gonna drive down over the cap of the knee, and that's where I'm gonna get that first scenario to apply the knee bar. Does that make sense for everybody? All right, guys, hands up on two. Talk with you guys about yesterday, but I think it's really, really important, okay? All of us at some point in our career rolling have found ourselves in this position right here, where we're in like rear mount, okay? If my elbows are flared out wide and I try to come up even to a knee, I will be unable to turn towards either side, okay? It's not until I start to tuck an elbow that I have the capacity to roll myself through towards my back. So we're gonna look at this from the opposite perspective. If you guys are coming through for your over underpass and you get your underhook and you come to your overhook and your overhook elbow is in like shallow under the leg, when you guys go here and you try to make this adjustment, if I find that my elbow is too far underneath and I get bumped with like a cross-face type motion, I will get collapsed and then I will find myself fighting back towards the top position in a very difficult scramble, okay? So when I come here and I put myself into my over-under, what I need you guys to understand is the arm doesn't hover, the arm doesn't come super deep. The arm is here on an angle flared towards the front side of the hip so that when I go and I cut underneath, I have a point of base behind me, I have something that I can drive off of, okay? I don't want to be here because I will get knocked to my back. Right? I need you guys to start to understand that and look for that when you guys are in the transition, okay? Like I said earlier, the first option, his leg is straight, his toes are kind of like in this dorsiflex motion pointed towards the ceiling. If I get him to start to rotate his knee outwardly, externally, and the foot follows suit, then I'm going to go to a different option where I drive my fulcrum differently under the base of the thigh. So when you guys come down here, sometimes instead of pushing, the guy works to frame and then they try to get towards that outside hip, okay? So he goes towards his right side. when I find myself in this position right here, I still want to come to the balls of my feet, but what's going to happen here is as I go to make this shift like I would to pass, when my left knee starts to undercut, I keep my elbow for base on the mat, I drag my left thigh underneath, and I fall to my hip. Now when I get right here, the other thing you have to notice is I don't leave myself completely parallel with his body, because it's a lot easier for him to dump me to the side if he gets a bend in his leg, like a hook, like a scoop sweep type position right there. So when I come here and I lift and I drive my thigh underneath, I'm setting that fulcrum, but as I get here, I want to keep the elbow wide. I want to keep my head position down. I don't try to sit up and look back. I drive in, okay? I can also flare my elbow to help compensate a little bit, but right here, my left leg is going to extend almost like a kiskatami or scarf hold, and then I'm going to start to walk back in a series of heel-toe motions until I get to the end of the lever. Once I find myself on the end of the lever, my right knee is going to open outwardly, and I'm going to start to apply a little bit of hip pressure. Okay? It really doesn't take much at that position if you can walk the leg out first. If you try to apply that pressure immediately upon entering into the position, you're going to struggle. You have to walk the leg to extension. You have to put the tension into the leg. So here one more time. Once you guys come down into this position, you find that your partner works to rotate. We're going to lift, but not in the same fashion here like vacuuming. I lift by taking my right knee high, undercutting with my left leg, and then I'm falling through. When I fall through, I extend the left leg for base. I begin to walk back in a series of heel-toe motions, and then while I keep my head down and flare my elbow just slightly, I'm opening my knee, and I'm gradually applying that hip pressure. Okay, like I said, it really doesn't take much. Make sure when you guys are drilling this, you're easing into it, okay guys? Option number 2, hands up, 1, 2.